New digs. I've got new digs. New apartment, right? New digs. You don't care about new digs, do you? Okay, fine. Let's do some Statline scouting. Statline scouting, for those of you new to the channel, is a series I do where I try to use stats only to uncover some of the hidden gems in the minor league systems. This isn't about, big time top 100 prospects. This is about kind of finding the guys who are flying under the radar and yet are performing at a very high level. The real goal of this series is for me to be the first person to tell you about certain prospects, okay? Eventually some of these guys will make the lists of the top 100, or they'll go on to great major league careers, hopefully, but I would just like to be the first person to tell you some of these people's names and just a little bit about how they're performing so far. So here we go. Let's hop on for some Statline scouting. The main tool I use to do Statline scouting is the Fangraphs leaderboards. You have great access to advanced stats. You can sort by all types of stats. You can use filters just to find a certain type of player you may be after. So that's great. I also like to use MLB Pipeline's prospect rankings for 2022 because it's so easy to switch from page to page and see, hey, where certain players rank within their own team's minor league system. Some of these guys won't even be ranked here. Some of these guys won't even be considered, a top 30 prospect within their own team coming into this year, and yet they may be performing very well. So two main tools here, MLB Pipeline rankings, just to get an idea of what the consensus is about this player coming into the season, and then of course the Fangraphs minor league leaderboards to show just how well they're performing. And if you sort by WRC Plus among qualified hitters, you see names you're probably familiar with. Nolan Gorman off to a hot start. Royce Lewis, former #1 pick. Luis Garcia, he's been in the majors, a bunch over the past couple years. He's a crazy talented hitter. So I think it'd be good to start simple here and start at AAA. And what we could do is we could set up an age filter. And what I'm personally going to be doing is I'm going to be looking first at AAA players that I'm going to go, let's go 23 and younger. And if you sort by WRC Plus among qualified hitters, you see names you're probably familiar with. Nolan Gorman off to a hot start. Royce Lewis, former #1 pick. Luis Garcia, he's been in the majors, a bunch over the past couple years. He's a crazy talented hitter. We've got a group of 4 Pirates here within the top 10. The one I would like to talk about is Cal Mitchell. And I'm talking about Cal Mitchell in particular because he has the lowest strikeout rate of these 4 at 14.5%, but also still the second highest ISO, and he's stolen some bases as well. So we're going to focus on Cal Mitchell over some of these other guys for now. So let's talk about Cal Mitchell. Cal Mitchell, a left-handed hitting second-round pick from the 2017 draft, drafted by the Pirates. In AAA this year, slashing .306, .362, .500 for a 128 WRC+. Also 6 stolen bases to 0 caught stealings, which is actually a big improvement from last year because last year in AA, we're talking about 6 stolen bases and 7 caught stealings. And recently promoted to the big leagues. You can see right here, as of recording, he is playing in the big leagues right now. Good for him. 6 career plate appearances, 1 career hit. But we'll just give a quick shout out here to Cal Mitchell to kick off this series. Looking at Pittsburgh's prospect rankings, this is definitely a stacked system. Especially you look at these first, I'll say 6 or so guys. These are just really strong players. I'm very shocked to see Onyel Cruz not #1 in this system according to MLB Pipeline. I think that's a little bit silly, but get you an idea of the depth of the system right here. You're seeing some really good names pop up here, and there he is, Cal Mitchell, number 25. He's the 25th ranked Pittsburgh Pirates prospect in their system, and yet just off to a really good start this year. Played 34 games in AAA and currently up in the big leagues. So Cal Mitchell, you, my good sir, have been Statline scouted. Gosh, Miguel Vargas is so good. He's just tearing it up right now. Unfortunately, I think he's probably too good to talk about, so I'll resist the temptation. Okay, let's switch over to the AAA pitchers here, and what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to give them an extra year. We'll look at AAA pitchers aged 24 or younger, just because, sometimes pitchers, they develop a little bit slower. So we're going to go AAA pitchers aged 24 or younger. We're going to have a pretty small sample size here, only 20 innings pitched required. And the thing is, when you're dealing with a small sample size, ERA is not going to tell you a whole lot. Davy Garcia and Luis Gil with the Yankees, they have the worst ERAs in AAA right now of pitchers aged 24 or younger. But even then, it's a small sample size, and, these are guys very capable of turning that around. So what I will look at instead is a stat like strikeout rate. And you see, when you sort by strikeout rate, some interesting names. Grayson Rodriguez, for example, is the #1 pitching prospect in all of Major League Baseball right now, at least in my opinion. And then you'll see guys like, Kyle Muller's been in the big leagues. Randy Contreras was covered in this series just last year. Matthew Liberatore, famously part of that Randy Arozarena deal. But the one name that kind of sticks out here is a guy I probably know the least about would be Zack Thompson of the St. Louis Cardinals. And the other thing that really sticks out about Zack Thompson here is his walk rate. And you look at among these top guys, he has the lowest walk rate. You're going to have to go down to number 12 here, Josh Winkowski of Boston, to find a player with a lower walk rate while still maintaining, a strikeout rate that high. And so if you look at a stat like K percentage minus walk percentage, which is one of my favorite stats, all of a sudden Zack Thompson goes up to number 2, trailing, once again, only Grayson Rodriguez, the #1 pitching prospect in all of baseball. So let's talk about Zack Thompson, 24-year-old from the St. Louis Cardinals system. Zack Thompson definitely has more prospect pedigree than someone like Cal Mitchell. We're talking about a former first-round pick here, 19th overall by the St. Louis Cardinals in 2019. In 2021, he really struggled at this level. He was not good. He had a 7.06 ERA, 6.15 FIP. And now, thanks to just, huge gains and strikeouts and really cutting that walk rate. I mean, let's look at this here. This guy went from 19% strikeouts, 13% walks to about 32% strikeouts, 6% walks so far. So this is just a huge transformation. A 4.42 ERA, it's not like amazing or anything, but the peripherals, the FIP, the xFIP, they're showing him as being better than that. And that's a strength of Statline scouting. We don't just have to look at things like ERA. We can look at, other stats that matter, especially stats that matter when you're trying to project a future. Now, Zack Thompson, according to MLB Pipeline, is the number 9. He is the 9th ranked St. Louis Cardinals prospect, just ahead of Alec Burleson, who actually we just saw show up on the hitter leaderboard, and Tink Hintz, which is one of the greatest baseball names I've ever heard. Tink Hintz. Number 1 in their system is Jordan Walker, who was featured on this series last year. I'd like to focus on some of the older hitters in AAA as well, and I'll show you why. So these are the 2019 AAA leaderboards for hitters aged between 24 and 27. I'm going to bump the minimum plate appearances to 200. Keep in mind, this is the 2019 season. And you look at some of the names that pop up, and even though these guys were, old enough that they wouldn't have been considered like can't miss, like big deal prospects, you see a lot of names here that have gone on to big league success. And you've got Ty France leading the way. I mean, this guy's turned into a really good major league hitter, and that's Ty France, leading the way in AAA at the age of 34. At the time, he was in the Padres system. Now he's a member of the Seattle Mariners. You can also see Jared Walsh here. You see Josh Rojas, who just had a 3-homer game the other day. Here's Randy Arozarena. Here is Jay Cronenworth. So, here's Taylor Ward. Wow, Taylor Ward. That's a great sight there. So, in AAA especially, because it is the closest level to the big leagues, you can kind of start to get interested and look at, hey, who's performing in AAA really well, regardless of if they're 25, 26, 27. I mean, as someone who's 26, I can tell you, once you're 27, your life is basically over. Jake McCarthy is definitely like a clear standout here. He has made the majors after slashing 400. He hit 400, 505 on base, 693 slugging, and 91 plate appearances at AAA. Now, I believe he's currently on the major league roster of the Arizona Diamondbacks. I would like to focus on the 4th player on this list. He is just after Nolan Gorman and Luis Camposano, who are just, great, pretty well-known prospects in their own right. And that is going to be David Villar, a 25-year-old in the San Francisco Giants system. Let's learn about David Villar. Okay, I'm kind of getting into David Villar. I don't know how much I believe in him as like a big league player, but I'm just super into the profile here. Because if you look at David Villar, you're talking about a former 11th round draft pick all the way back in 2018. There were 315 players drafted ahead of David Villar in 2018. And what's really cool about David Villar, too, is he's Rule 5 draft eligible. Now, for those of you who don't know, there was no major league portion of the Rule 5 draft last winter or last spring. The lockout kind of did away with that. But he was one of those guys where if there was a Rule 5 draft and if the Giants didn't protect him, which it seems like they didn't do, he's not currently on their 40-man, he would have been a really intriguing Rule 5 draft guy. Instead, he gets to stick around with the San Francisco Giants. And look at him, 14 homers in 39 games, OPS of about 1100. Strikeout rate kind of high at 27%. You know, if you see guys striking out 27% of the time in AAA when they're doing well, you know, that might mean they're a 30% guy in the majors or even higher, which isn't, you know, it isn't the best, but still 15% walk rate to complement that. And, you know, David Villar, don't seem to be any mentions of him here on the Fangraphs site, but he's just a performer. Like 2018 rookie ball, low A, 2019 high A, 2021 in double A last year had a 141 WRC plus, and here he is with a 169, nice at age 25 in AAA. Like, this is a guy who just, no matter where he goes, he's hit pretty well. Maybe not the best in terms of strikeouts, but he just hits. He just hits the baseball. He's played 145 games combined, 2021 and 2022. He's hit 34 home runs, and those are in the upper levels of the minors. So way to go, David Villar. And yeah, this guy's clearly operating sort of under the radar because he is not even ranked. He's not even ranked in the top 30 among all players in the San Francisco Giants system. So really interesting stuff from David Villar, a Rule 5 draft eligible player. And so, you know, even if he doesn't make the big leagues this year, he could still be interesting, you know, going into the winter. We're going to make the jump from AAA to AA here, and it's worth noting that AA is still really good. AA is considered an upper level of the minors, and there's a lot of players that will just simply make the jump from AA to the majors instead of, you know, going to AAA or something like that. So let's give AA some respect. We're looking at hitters age 22 or younger. We're sorting by weighted runs created plus, and we're seeing some names come up. Corbin Carroll, back from injury, tearing it up. He is a big deal. Logan O'Hoppe is really interesting, guys, because he is a former 23rd round pick by the Philadelphia Phillies, a catcher, and he is just absolutely tearing it up in AA right now. 22 years old. Way to go, Logan O'Hoppe. However, if we go down just a little bit more, we see a 20-year-old. We're not talking 21 like Gunnar Henderson. We're not talking 22 like Logan O'Hoppe. We are talking 20, and that is Mr. Ezequiel Tovar of the Colorado Rockies. Now, I've definitely seen Ezequiel Tovar's name before, and when his name popped up this time, I asked myself, okay, was he part of the Nolan Arenado trade? And he wasn't. He's been a Colorado Rocky since he was a teenager. He was signed all the way back in 2017, a Venezuelan shortstop signed for $800,000, according to this article on Purple Row. That is their SB Nation blog. Let's look at Ezequiel Tovar's career here real quick because he is just tearing it up right now at the age of 20 in AA. So already very aggressive to have him up at that level at that age, but he's just responding to it so well. He has 9 homers in 37 games. Last year, for example, he just hit 15 home runs in about 100 games. So he's already, you know, we're seeing power increases there, and that happens a lot when you get older. Also, 14 steals and 0 caught stealings, and Fangraphs has him rated potentially as a 60 grade glove, and that would be as a shortstop. So this is a guy who, he doesn't even really have to be like a killer hitter to be a valuable player in the big leagues, because if he is indeed like an above average defensive shortstop, there's a lot of value from that. And if he's a great base runner or a great base stealer, there's a lot of value in that as well. So that's Ezequiel Tovar with a 170 WRC plus, which is currently 4th among all hitters age 22 or younger in AA level with at least 100 plate appearances. So way to go, Ezequiel Tovar. If you go over here to the Rockies top prospects list, he is currently ranked number 6th according to MLB Pipeline. This isn't considered one of the most stacked systems, but still good for Ezequiel Tovar. 6th ranked prospect in the Rockies system, probably moving up that, and if he continues to hit well, probably a guy you're going to see on a top 100 list sometime next year. All right, moving over here to the AA pitchers, I'm actually going to talk about a guy who is currently in AAA, having earned himself a promotion. Look at Brayan Bello's numbers in AA. This is a pitcher for the Boston Red Sox. Okay, we're talking pitchers here, 23 or younger, with at least 30 innings pitched. He is 1st in ground ball rate, which is great. He's also tied for 1st in swinging strike rate with Cleveland's Logan Allen. So when you're talking about a guy who can get so many swings and misses with that swinging strike rate, but also when it is hit, 62% ground ball rate. Like, that's beautiful to me. That's what pitching is all about. I'd love a guy that can get the swing and miss, but even if they don't get the swing and miss, they get a lot of ground balls, and that's what it's all about. And that right here is Brayan Bello. So I've been researching some biographical information on Brayan Bello here because, quite frankly, coming into this year, I was not familiar with him at all. Looks like, according to the website justbaseball.com, after being completely overlooked in the 2015 and 2016 MLB international signing periods, signed for just $28,000 in 2017. So, he signed probably a little bit older than, most of the Latin teenagers that sign. And he waited until 2017. He got $28,000. But now you just look at the numbers. This dude is a big deal right now for the Boston Red Sox, because he was tearing it up in Double-A. He started 6 games. He had a 1.60 ERA. He was striking out a bunch of dudes. And then you move him up to Triple-A, and look what he's done in Triple-A so far. Also very impressive numbers. Again, he's only started 2 games there, but a 15 K per 9 and a 3 ERA and a 2.21 FIP and a 2.50 xFIP. In Triple-A right now, and granted, I know only 2 starts, but striking out 40% of batters faced. This is incredible stuff from Brayan Bello. Pipeline has him at number 4 among prospects in the Boston Red Sox system, but this is just this is truly ascendant stuff, because, if you look at Nick York, okay, we're talking about a first-round draft pick in 2020. We're looking at Tristan Casas. We're talking about a first-round draft pick in 2018. We're talking about Marcelo Mayer, 4th overall first-round draft pick in 2021. And yet here's Brayan Bello. We're talking about $28,000. That is just, in this game, that is just nothing. And you get a guy with this caliber of talent. Way to go. That's a great find for the Boston Red Sox. And quite frankly, if he just keeps this up, he will probably pitch in the big leagues pretty soon. So down here in Double-A, I've decided to do a little bit of what I call build your own prospect, and I just like to look for certain attributes. A power speed guy is always good, so I just wanted a guy, hey, have you hit 5 homers? Have you stolen 5 bases by now? And I'm also really big on plate discipline, so I looked for someone who had at least a 0.8 walk to strikeout ratio, age 23 or younger, and then also added some ISO just to have a little bit more, coverage for power guys, extra base hit guys. And these are guys in Double-A. And we get 2 names that pop up. One of them is Gunnar Henderson. And look, Gunnar Henderson, amazing prospect, definitely a guy you should know about, absolutely terrific, but just a little bit too good, a little bit too well known for the Statline scouting series. But above him, we have a 23-year-old for the San Diego Padres, and I'll try not to butcher this name, but I'm still not really sure. Esteury Ruiz. Sorry about that. So Esteury Ruiz of the San Diego Padres, a second baseman / outfielder. Fangraphs had him rated coming into this year as a 35-plus future value. That basically just means a bench guy, a role player, maybe in the big leagues. But Esteury Ruiz, last year in Double-A in 2021, about a league average hitter at the age of 22, but you fast forward a year, give him an offseason, slashing .340, .484 on base percentage, that's really special, and .569 slugging, OPS well over 1,000. You see the strikeout rate and the walk right here. He walks almost as much as he strikes out, which is awesome. But what is super intriguing is look at these stolen base totals just from year to year. We've got 49, 34, 36, and already this year, in just 39 games, he has stolen 29 bases and only been caught stealing 4 times. Now, here's the thing about steals, and I think this is especially pertinent for when we're talking about the minor leagues. Stolen bases in the minors don't always correlate to stolen bases in the majors. I'm not really sure, this is the next, guy to lead the league in stolen bases. I don't think that's what's happening here. What I do think stolen bases in the minors show is a certain level of athleticism. And so you have guys who steal a lot of bases in the minors. They come to the majors. They don't steal as much because, the pitchers are better about getting it to the plate. The catchers have a way better pop time. But what they have demonstrated is some level of proficiency on the base pass, and that's going to help them in other facets of their game because that's going to give them, help them go first to third. That's going to help them in their defense even. That's going to mean that, maybe he's rangy in the outfield because we can just tell based on the fact that he likes to steal a lot of bases that he is quick. Ruiz, by the way, was originally a Kansas City Royal, but he was brought over to San Diego as part of a Trevor Cahill trade in 2017, around the trade deadline. Trevor Cahill has been traded, I feel like, many times, but this is just a particular trade that sent him from the Royals to the Padres in 2017. 6 players involved. One of them was Esteury Ruiz. And if you go on Pipeline and you're talking about a minor league system headlined by C.J. Abrams, Robert Hassel III, Mackenzie Gore, Luis Campusano, you're going to have to scroll a while, but there he is, showing up at number 30. So there you go, Statline scouted. All right, I think I'm going to get pretty aggressive here with the age filter and look for players in high A that are age 20 or younger. And here's the thing, if you're 20 and you're playing in high A, like that's pretty amazing. There's only 28 guys so far this year with at least 100 plate appearances of that age or younger that are playing in high A right now. So up top, sorted by WRC+, we have Mason Wynn, who I feel like we should talk about, but unfortunately we kind of already did a Cardinals guy, so I'm going to skip him. Marco Luciano, big deal. I want to talk about the highest ranked 19-year-old we see on this list. So we're not even talking 20 anymore. We're talking 19, and that is going to be Evan Carter, who is ahead of the likes of Robert Hassel III, Zach Veen, Noel V. Marte, Ellie De La Cruz. Like, these are considered big deal prospects, top 100 guys easily. And yet, here's Evan Carter at 19 with a higher WRC+ so far. And this is really nothing new for Evan Carter. The Texas Rangers have been just super aggressive in how they used him in their minor league system ever since he was drafted in the second round of the 2020 draft, because they just plopped him right in there in A-ball at the age of 18, and he performed admirably, albeit across a rather small sample size, 32 games. We're talking about a 138 WRC+, and hey, this year, 32 games, 138 WRC+, in high A. So he's kind of showing it's not a fluke. Last year, he walked more than he struck out. This year, the walks and the strikeouts both down. That's probably a good thing for him. It's allowing him to hit for average. He's got a 308 average this year, and I imagine he's probably being more aggressive at the plate than he was last year. But I mean, this is just really incredible stuff, and it's not the type of thing that you can count on every year. I mean, just 18 tearing it up, A-ball. 19 tearing it up, high A. Like, this is just really impressive stuff, and I think it's kind of flying under the radar a little bit for Evan Carter. Because again, last year in A-ball, he was one of just 9 18-year-olds to get at least 100 plate appearances, and of those, he was by far the best. And this year now, if you're talking age 19, high A, at least 100 plate appearances, only one other guy has it. And Evan Carter just outperformed. This is like just really impressive for his age. That's sort of the story here with Evan Carter. It's unbelievable that he's playing at these levels at this age, and it's surprising he's not getting more attention. Fangraphs had him ranked 13th among all players in the Texas Rangers system. Pipeline has him 9th. It's really impressive stuff from Evan Carter, who was almost Statline scouted last year, but now this year he is part of the Statline scouting team. Man, I would love to do a hit on Kyle Harrison, who at the age of 20 is striking out half the batters he's faced in high A. However, I featured him in the first episode of this series, so I guess I won't. So we're moving on here to A-ball, which I guess could kind of be considered low A, depending on who you ask, but basically this is the lowest level of full season ball. We're looking at pitchers here, 19 or younger, and if we just sort by strikeout rate, I know, it's the classic move, just sort by strikeout rate. So first of all, you got Andrew Painter here, but he's a first-round pick in 2021. So instead, I think I'm going to talk about this guy who pitches for Toronto. And by the way, he's like a young 19. He's 19, 2 months, 29 days, born in 2003. Want to feel old. And his name is, I'll do my best, Dahian Santos? I'll have to work on that first name, not so sure. So a few things that are interesting here. He's listed 5'11", which is fairly short for a pitcher, but also he's like 19. It's possible he is taller than that or going to be taller than that. And, we're talking about a guy this young, there's just not a lot of past performance to talk about. So basically, he played in 2021 complex ball, which is just, the competition level there is all over the place. So he struck out a bunch of guys, but you weren't really sure. He did make it up to A-ball for a little bit, but he only pitched 5 innings. And this year he's being featured, He has made 2 starts, but he's also made 5 appearances out of the bullpen. So I'm kind of curious. It seems to me like this is the type of guy who, Toronto is hoping to develop as a reliever. We'll just have to see. But, I mean, when you're striking out 17.6 batters per 9, that's pretty impressive. A 1.44 ERA, again, striking out 49% of batters faced. Let's learn a little bit more about Dahian Santos. So I am here on Bluebird Banter, which is the Blue Jays SB Nation affiliate blog. They've written that Santos signed with the Blue Jays for $150,000 during the 2019 international free agent signing period out of Venezuela. So he's Venezuelan. We've now learned that. The thing is, $150K, the top guys in any given, international free agent class, like they'll get, 2.5 or like 3 million. So $150K, it's not like ultra cheap or anything like that, but it's turned into a really good investment for the Blue Jays organization so far. If you go on Pipeline and look at the top 30 Blue Jays prospects, you'll have to scroll a while. They're, of course, headlined by Gabriel Moreno, who's just an unbelievably beast catching prospect right now. Great hitter, but you get down to 28th, and there's Santos. However, I will give Fangraphs some credit because they have him ranked 12th. So, when you have guys like that, it's kind of tough to tell exactly what the industry consensus is. But basically, Dahian Santos, I'm going to give him a thumbs up because he's young and he's striking out a bunch of dudes. So we're going to wrap up here with an A-ball hitter. We're looking at age 19 and younger once again. And it's just really hard to ignore Emmanuel Rodriguez. So Emmanuel Rodriguez is leading WRC plus among teenagers in A-ball. The guy who's second is Jordan Lawler. So Jordan Lawler, 6th overall pick in last year's draft by the Diamondbacks, but getting beat out, at least at the moment, by Emmanuel Rodriguez. And it's a weird profile. I'm not sure how it projects to the big leagues, but let's talk about it. So I'm kind of thinking Emmanuel Rodriguez is just like a bat on the shoulder guy. And what I mean by that is look at his walk rate and look at his strikeout rate, right? He's walking nearly 29% of the time. He's striking out nearly 27% of the time. So, impressively, right, he does walk more than he strikes out, and he walks a ton, which is why he has a 484 on base percentage as a 19-year-old in A-ball. And yet, as you move up in the levels, sometimes pitchers figure you out. And he has 5 homers in 36 games. He had 10 in 37 last year. So he definitely has some power potential, but you kind of need that power to scare off pitchers. Because I think right now he's a guy who has discipline in the sense that he doesn't swing a lot, but, it'll just have to be seen, how he can adjust, as he starts to progress throughout his career. But definitely a really interesting profile. I mean, a 179 WRC plus as a teenager in full season ball. I mean, that is really, really impressive. So let's learn more about him. Okay, so interesting. So it looks like Rodriguez was a pretty big deal as an international free agent. And by the way, when I said 2.5 to 3 million is the upper level range, I was kind of wrong on that. It looks like Dominguez and Robert Powelson, they were $5 million guys. And I think that's a case where both those teams maxed out the biggest possible budget. Bayron Lora as well, getting $4 million that year. But yeah, this is the 2019 class. And Emmanuel Rodriguez was ranked 8th, and he signed with the Twins for $2.5 million. So, already before he even made his pro debut, this is a guy who would have been considered a pretty big deal. Yet if you go on Pipeline, he is just the 17th ranked Twins prospect in their entire organization. And so it's kind of interesting. We'll just have to see, how can this profile play out for Emmanuel Rodriguez? It's a really interesting performance at a young age in full season ball for this guy, and I think definitely a name to keep an eye on. Well, I think that'll wrap it up. Hopefully you've learned some new names, and hopefully these new names will become future top 100 prospects or future big league contributors. In the meantime, there's a lot more minor league ball to be played, so I'll be back periodically throughout the season to do some more Statline scouting.